Picture this. You walk into a room, and before you've said a single word, someone's energy hits you. They smile, but there's nothing warm in it. It's calculation. They speak, but every word lands with a subtle edge. And somehow, without anything specific you can point to, you feel smaller. You feel like you need to defend yourself. You feel like you're already losing ground. Here's a truth no one tells you early enough. Toxic people are not rare. They are not confined to extreme situations or obvious environments. They are in your office. They are in your social circle. They are sometimes sitting at your family dinner table. Some of them are loud and easy to spot. Others are quiet and deliberate. They smile while they chip away at you, piece by piece, in ways so subtle you don't even notice it's happening until you look back and realize how much of yourself you gave away. I want to ask you something uncomfortable. How many opportunities have you lost? Not because you weren't good enough, but because you allowed the wrong person to take a permanent residence in your mind. How much of your time has been spent replaying someone's words on a loop, over and over, like a track you can't turn off? If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, doubting yourself, or inexplicably angry, you've been poisoned. And the most dangerous part is that most people don't recognize it until the damage is already done. But here's what I want you to understand. I'm going to show you the smartest way to deal with toxic people. Not the loudest way, not the most dramatic way, the smartest way. The approach that lets you keep your power, your peace, and your self-respect every single time. Because the truth is, you are never going to eliminate every toxic person from your life. But you can absolutely make sure they never get the best of you again. And once you know how to do that, you don't just survive them, you outsmart them. And that is where the real win is. The first mistake most people make when they encounter someone toxic is assuming it is about them. They think, what did I do? Why are they treating me this way? Did I say something wrong? They go through the mental checklist, trying to trace back the moment they caused this. But here's the reality you need to burn into your thinking. Their behavior is a mirror of them, not a reflection of you. It is their insecurities, their fears, their failures, and their unprocessed pain spilling over into every room they enter. You just happen to be standing close enough to get hit by it. Think about it this way. If a snake bites you, you don't take it personally. You don't stand there asking, why would the snake do that? Did I offend it? No. You understand that a snake produces venom. That is its nature. Toxic people produce emotional venom. Sometimes it is jealousy. Sometimes it is the need for control. Sometimes it is a compulsion to bring others down so they can feel taller by comparison. But regardless of the form it takes, it is coming from what is already inside them. It is not about you. The danger comes when you let their words bypass your logic and go straight to your heart. Suddenly, you are replaying the comment. You are questioning your worth. You are getting defensive, maybe even lashing back. And now they have you exactly where they want you. Reactive, emotional, and off balance. That is the target state they are working toward. Toxic people feed off that reaction. They need it. Your reaction is the oxygen to their fire. Take it away, and you take away their power. I have seen this dynamic play out in the most high-pressure environments imaginable. Interrogation rooms, high-stakes negotiations, situations where someone is deliberately trying to provoke you, push your buttons, and test your limits because they want to control the dynamic. The moment you react, you have handed them a map to your emotional world. They now know exactly where to hit next time. But if you stay still, steady, watching without absorbing, that is when the power shifts. You stop being the target and become the observer. You have to train yourself to step back mentally in those moments. Build an invisible wall between you and them. You can hear their words, you can see their expressions, but they cannot reach you. You are analyzing them the way you would analyze a case study. Why is this person behaving this way? What is driving this? What does this tell me about what's going on inside them? The moment you shift from I'm hurt to I'm studying this, you change the entire dynamic. You are no longer inside the storm. You are above it, watching from a distance with full clarity. Sometimes toxic people act out because they feel genuinely threatened by you. Your confidence, your competence, your progress, it reflects back to them everything they are not doing with their own lives. And instead of using that as motivation to rise, they try to pull you down to their level. This is why you absolutely cannot measure your worth based on how someone else treats you. If you start believing their version of you, you have given them power they have not earned and do not deserve. Let me be direct with you. Not everyone's opinion matters. If someone has demonstrated that they operate from jealousy, manipulation, or insecurity, why would you hand them the keys to your self-esteem? That is like giving a thief your wallet and expecting the cash to still be there when they hand it back. Here's something else worth understanding. Toxic behavior follows patterns. People repeat what works for them. If making cutting remarks gets a reaction out of you, they will keep making cutting remarks. If guilt-tripping you produces compliance, they will keep guilt-tripping you. But once you identify the pattern, you remove the element of surprise. They stop being unpredictable. They become predictable. And that is when you can start operating smarter than they do. Here's something that might sting a little. Sometimes we personalize toxicity because we are quietly looking for validation from the wrong people. We want the approval of the difficult boss. We want the acceptance of the critical family member. We keep going back, hoping that this time it will be different. But every time you return hoping for a different outcome from the same person, you are walking straight back into the same trap. You have to accept something that is hard but liberating. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you no matter what you do. That is not your battle to fight. You cannot win it. It does not exist. The mental shift that will save you the most energy is this. Stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And start asking, why am I still letting it in? The moment you stop personalizing their actions, you pull out the emotional hook they have been using on you. You stop making their storm your storm. This does not mean you ignore bad behavior or allow people to run over you. It means you respond from clarity instead of emotional chaos. You decide when to speak, when to draw a line, and when to walk away. Not because you are hurt, but because you are strategic. You are not here to fix them. You are not here to convince them to treat you better. You are here to protect your space, your energy, and your peace. And that starts with one clear understanding. What they throw at you is theirs to carry, not yours to hold. When you stop personalizing toxicity, something fundamental shifts. You stop being their target and become untouchable. The comments that used to keep you up at night start to feel small. The manipulation that once made you second-guess yourself now looks obvious and transparent. And the people who thrive on draining others will move on, because you are no longer giving them what they need to operate. That is the foundation. You cannot win a game you do not understand. And in the game toxic people play, the rule is simple. Don't get hooked. See the behavior for what it is, not for what it is designed to make you feel. Once you can do that consistently, you have already removed their greatest weapon. Toxic people have one primary advantage over most people. They know how to trigger a reaction. It is their tool of choice. They probe, they prod, they say something precisely calibrated to get under your skin. And the moment you snap, defend yourself, or come apart, they win. Because in that instant, you handed them control of your emotional state. They are now driving, and you are just a passenger in your own response. Your energy is a finite resource. It is limited, it is valuable, and once it is spent, it does not come back. Every time you let a toxic person wind you up, you are handing over your most valuable asset at no cost to them. Emotionally, that is exactly what happens when you allow someone to dictate how you feel. When someone disrespects you, sends that passive-aggressive message, or throws a subtle jab in public, they are not just communicating, they are fishing. They are putting bait in the water to see if you will bite. If you take it, they get exactly what they wanted, control. If you don't, they're left standing there with their bait and nothing to show for it. This does not mean you become emotionally detached from everything. It means you choose deliberately when and how to engage. There's a fundamental difference between responding and reacting. A reaction is instant, unfiltered, and driven by impulse. A response is deliberate and built on one question. what outcome do I actually want here? Here's a scenario. You are in a meeting and someone undermines you in front of the group. Your gut wants to fire back, defend yourself, call them out right there. But if you do that in the heat of that moment, you risk looking defensive, reactive, and unprofessional. And that is exactly the image they were trying to create. Now the room remembers your outburst, not their provocation. But if you pause instead, keep your expression neutral, take note of what happened, and address it privately afterward with complete calm and authority, you have just controlled the setting, the tone, and the narrative. You took away their ability to use the room against you. That pause, those 2 or 3 seconds before you speak, can be the entire difference between giving them the win or keeping it. In those seconds, you ask yourself one thing. Is what I am about to say going to move me forward, or is it just feeding their fire? In high-pressure environments, interrogations, tense negotiations, heated personal conflicts, the person who keeps their composure has the structural advantage. They see more clearly, they hear more precisely, they think more strategically. When you lose your temper, your field of vision narrows, your brain locks onto the immediate threat and stops processing the larger picture. That is when mistakes happen, and toxic people are counting on that response. Some people are genuinely addicted to chaos. They feed off it because it gives them a sense of control and a distorted kind of stimulation. If you match their chaos with yours, you are not just giving them what they want, you are stepping into their arena, where they know every rule and you are still finding the exits. So don't play that game. If they raise their voice, lower yours. If they try to rush you into a decision, deliberately slow the pace. If they flood you with negativity, respond with silence or a short factual statement. This is not passivity. This is control, and it is far more powerful than anything reactive. One of the most effective ways to protect your energy is to make a decision before you walk into the situation. Before the meeting, before the family gathering, before any environment where you know a toxic person will be present, set your intention. No matter what they say or do, I will not give them a reaction. Treat it as a mental discipline challenge. And when you walk out having held that line, you leave with something more than your energy intact. You leave with proof that they cannot touch you. Controlling your energy is not only about blocking negative reactions, it is about protecting your positive state. When you allow your mood to be determined by someone else's behavior, you are handing them remote access to your mind. But when you hold steady, you send a message they cannot ignore. You do not get to decide how I operate today. That does not just protect you, it frustrates them. Nothing disarms a toxic person faster than the realization that their tactics are not producing results. They may escalate initially, try new angles, push harder, but eventually they move on to an easier target because without your energy, they have no material to work with. This takes practice. You will slip. There will be moments you walk away thinking, I cannot believe I let them get to me. That is fine. That is part of building the skill. The goal is not perfection. It is progress. Every time you catch yourself incorrect, you are strengthening a muscle. And the stronger that muscle gets, the less effort it takes to hold the line. The real shift happens when you stop seeing their behavior as something you need to match or defeat, and start treating it as background noise you do not need to tune into. You preserve your energy for what actually matters: your goals, your relationships, your own development. That is how you win against toxic people without ever stepping into their fight. Because the smartest way to deal with them is not to out-yell them, out-manipulate them, or out-argue them. It is to make their favorite game, getting a reaction from you, impossible to win. When you do that, you have not just kept your energy, you have kept your power. And that is something no one can take from you unless you hand it over yourself. Boundaries are not walls built to keep the whole world out. They are gates that you control. They determine who gets access, how much access they get, and on what terms. Without them, you are leaving the door to your life wide open and hoping that no one with bad intentions decides to walk through. But here is the reality. If you do not define your own limits, someone else will. and they will set them in a way that works entirely in their favor, not yours. Toxic people are experts at testing limits. They push, they probe, they see how far they can go. The first time they cross the line and you say nothing, they take note. They register it as permission. And the next time, they push further. This is why boundaries cannot be vague or flexible. They have to be clear, firm, and consistently enforced. Because if you give an inch on principle, you do not just lose an inch, you establish a precedent. Boundaries are not about changing another person's behavior. They are about controlling access to you. Think of yourself as something valuable and worth protecting. You would not let just anyone wander into your home, go through your belongings, and take whatever they wanted. So why would you let just anyone wander into your mental space, drain your emotional reserves, and take from you without limit? Your energy is more valuable than anything you own, and yet most people guard their physical possessions far more carefully than they guard their mental and emotional space. A lot of people struggle with boundaries because they fear being seen as difficult, cold, or selfish. That fear is exactly what toxic people exploit. They rely on your need to be liked, your hesitation to create conflict, your tendency to over-explain your own decisions. But here is a truth that will change how you operate. Setting a boundary is not an act of aggression. It is an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that says, I value myself enough to protect what is important to me. Some boundaries are physical, how close someone can get, how much of your personal space they are allowed to occupy. Some are emotional, what parts of your life you are willing to share, and with whom. Some are about time, how much of it you give, and when. If someone calls you every night to unload their problems and you answer every single time, you are teaching them that your peace has no closing hours. The moment you stop answering after a certain point, you are sending a new message. My time has limits. Adjust accordingly. The tricky part is that boundaries will always be tested. Some people test them by accident. They genuinely did not know they crossed a line. Others test them deliberately, just to see whether you are serious. And when you enforce the boundary, they may respond with anger, guilt-tripping, or accusations. This is the moment where most people fold. They think, maybe I am being too harsh. Maybe I should let it go just this once. But the moment you give in, you have trained them that your boundaries are negotiable. And a negotiable boundary is not a boundary. It is a suggestion. You have to be willing to let people be uncomfortable with your limits. Not everyone will accept them gracefully. Some will call you cold or unapproachable. That is fine. You're not setting boundaries to make other people comfortable. You are setting them to protect your mental and emotional well-being. The people who genuinely respect you will adjust. The ones who refuse, they were only benefiting from your lack of limits in the first place, and their reaction tells you exactly what kind of people they are. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you operate with clear boundaries. You stop feeling the need to over-explain your decisions. You stop seeking approval for your choices. You simply act in alignment with your own standards. You say no without attaching a lengthy justification. You decline without apologizing for your own existence. That simplicity sends an unmistakable signal. I am in control of my life. I have watched this play out in professional environments over and over again. The person with no clear limits ends up with all the extra work, all the after-hours calls, all the stress that was never theirs to begin with. The person with strong, clear limits is still respected, and often respected more deeply. Why? Because when you respect your own limits, you signal to others that those limits are real and worth honoring. The same is true in personal relationships. If someone constantly criticizes you, makes cutting remarks at your expense, or violates your trust, and you keep tolerating it without response, you are teaching them that your comfort is negotiable. But the first time you calmly state, "That's not okay with me," and then follow through when it happens again by creating real distance, you are teaching them something entirely different. You are teaching them that your comfort is a condition for your presence. Boundaries also function as a filter. They show you clearly who belongs in your life and who does not. The people who push against your limits, argue with them, or try to dismantle them are revealing that they do not respect you. You do not need those people close. The ones who adjust without drama, those are the people worth keeping. But a boundary is only as strong as your willingness to enforce it. It is not enough to declare it once. You have to act on it consistently. If you tell someone not to speak to you a certain way and then allow it to happen again without consequence, you have just demonstrated that your words carry no weight. A boundary without enforcement is just a statement. It is not a limit. It is a suggestion with no follow-through. This will feel unnatural at first, particularly if you have spent a long time as a people pleaser. You will feel guilt. You will feel doubt. That is a normal part of breaking old patterns and building new ones. But over time, enforcing your limits becomes second nature, and you will notice something significant starting to happen. Toxic people will begin to disappear from your life. Not because you drove them out with confrontation, but because they can no longer operate in an environment where they cannot cross lines without consequence. The structure you build with clear limits is not designed to isolate you. It is designed to keep your space safe enough for the right people to come in. And healthy people will not just accept your limits, they will appreciate them, because people who are grounded and secure have their own. When you commit to yours, you are making a declaration. I am not available for disrespect. I am not available for manipulation. I am not available for chaos that I did not create. And that declaration does not just hold toxic people in check. It fundamentally changes how you see yourself. You stop operating from defense. You start operating from self-respect. Sometimes the smartest move you can make is no move at all. That is a hard thing for most people to accept, because we are conditioned to believe that we need to confront everything, prove our point, get the last word. But not every battle is worth fighting. Not every provocation deserves your energy. And not every toxic person needs to be corrected, exposed, or taught a lesson. In fact, attempting to do those things usually pulls you exactly where they want you, into the mess they created. Strategic disengagement is about recognizing when continuing the interaction serves no purpose other than to drain you. It is not weakness. It is not avoidance. It is the discipline to consciously choose where you invest your time and emotional resources. When you disengage strategically, you are making a calculated decision. This exchange will cost me more than it is worth. And the moment you decide that, you take back control. Here's the problem with always engaging. Toxic people are skilled at twisting narrative. You call them out and suddenly, they are the victim. You defend yourself and they claim you are overreacting. You try to reason with them and they distort your words until you barely recognize what you originally said. In these dynamics, every word you contribute becomes a potential weapon in their hands. Sometimes the only winning move is to put the weapon down entirely by saying nothing at all. Disengagement does not always mean physically removing yourself, though sometimes that is exactly the right call. It can also mean mentally stepping back while still present in the same room. You can refuse to participate in someone's game without leaving the space. You answer with short, factual responses. You let their bait sit in the air without biting. You remove the emotional fuel from the interaction. Think of a toxic exchange like a fire. Every time you explain yourself, defend yourself, argue, or react, you are adding fuel. Without that fuel, the fire burns out on its own. Some people cannot tolerate that. They will escalate, raise their voice, throw out something more pointed, push harder, because they are desperate to pull you back in. That is where your resolve gets tested. Strategic disengagement requires that you be completely comfortable with silence, with letting someone flail around without getting a response. Most of us are conditioned to fill silence and resolve tension. Learning to sit with it without flinching is one of the most powerful things you can develop. I have been in situations where the smartest, safest move was to end the conversation entirely. In high-stakes professional environments, that meant physically removing myself. In everyday life, it might mean saying simply, "I'm not going to have this conversation right now," and walking away without further discussion. It might mean not responding to the message designed to provoke you. It might mean letting the email go unanswered when it is clearly more about starting a fight than solving a problem. What is essential to understand is that disengagement is a choice, not a retreat. You are not walking away because you cannot handle it. You are walking away because you have decided it is not worth your time. That distinction matters enormously because it keeps you in the position of authority. The person who decides when and how to engage is the person with the actual power in the dynamic. There is also a longer game at play here. Toxic people are sustained by attention. When you stop supplying it, they may intensify their behavior initially, like a fire flaring up right before it dies out. But if you remain consistent, they will eventually either scale back or redirect their focus elsewhere. Either way, you win, without ever stepping into their fight. One important clarification: disengagement does not mean ignoring behavior that has real consequences indefinitely. In the workplace, in your home, in situations that directly affect your life, you may need to address it, but you address it when you decide, in the setting you choose, with the tone you control. That is still engagement on your terms, not theirs. Many people struggle with disengagement because they want closure. They want the toxic person to understand what they did wrong, to admit fault, to acknowledge the harm they caused. But here's the hard truth you need to sit with. Closure does not come from them. It comes from you deciding that their understanding is not required for your peace. The moment you stop waiting for them to finally get it, you release yourself from a trap that was never going to close on your behalf. There's also the belief that not standing up to them in the moment means letting them win. But toxic people measure winning by how much of your time, attention, and energy they can consume. Refusing to give them that is not losing. Starving their game is winning. Sometimes the quiet exit is the loudest statement you will ever make. Becoming untouchable does not mean no one will ever try to get under your skin again. It does not mean the world suddenly becomes easier or that toxic people stop existing. What it means is this: no matter what they throw at you, it will not stick. You will have built yourself into someone so grounded, so clear about who you are, that their words, their games, and their energy simply do not have a surface to cling to. Most people approach toxic situations by trying to control the other person. If I can just make them understand, if I can get them to change, if I explain myself better, it will stop. But that is like trying to control the weather. Exhausting, futile, and entirely outside your hands. The smarter approach is to build yourself so solidly that it does not matter what the weather does. You are not knocked over by it. This kind of inner strength starts with knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. If your sense of self is dependent on other people's approval, you are perpetually vulnerable. Every insult, every dismissal, every sideways comment becomes a threat to your identity. But when you have done the work to define your own worth on your own terms, you stop outsourcing your value to people who have not earned the right to shape it. That work is not glamorous. It is built in the daily habits that no one else sees. Showing up for yourself even when no one is watching. Keeping the promises you make to yourself. Setting goals and actually following through. Every time you do what you said you were going to do, you are sending yourself a message. I can be trusted. And the more you trust yourself, the less you need validation from anyone else. Confidence is a direct result of self-respect. It is not about walking into a room and believing you are superior to the people in it. It is about walking into a room and not needing to compare yourself to anyone at all. That is what makes you untouchable. You are not in competition with them. You are not trying to prove anything to them. You are not seeking anything from them, which means they have nothing to leverage. Toxic people survive by finding cracks in the armor. If you are insecure about your abilities, they will question your competence. If you are sensitive about a particular area of your life, they will make small, persistent digs at exactly that point. If you are uncertain about your decisions, they will plant seeds of doubt and water them carefully. Building inner strength means closing those cracks, not by pretending you have no vulnerabilities, but by owning them. When you own your flaws, they stop being weapons anyone else can use against you. Part of building this resilience means exposing yourself to challenge on purpose. Too many people spend their lives actively avoiding discomfort, but growth lives inside discomfort. The more you push yourself deliberately in your discipline, your physical conditioning, your professional development, your learning, the more you train your mind to operate under pressure. And when you have trained under real pressure, the daily provocations from a toxic person feel small by comparison. Emotional discipline is central to all of this. You cannot be untouchable if every feeling that passes through you runs the show. That is not about suppressing your emotions. It is about being larger than them. Anger, frustration, disappointment. These are all legitimate and natural responses. But you decide whether they drive your actions. When you pause before you speak, when you take a breath before you respond, you are asserting something fundamental. I am in charge here, not my impulses. The people around you matter enormously in this process. If you are surrounded by people who drain you, doubt you, or consistently diminish you, you are constantly patching holes rather than building strength. But when you choose to invest your time in people who push you forward, who hold you accountable in a healthy way, who remind you of who you are when you start to forget, you are building a foundation that reinforces everything you are developing in yourself. No one is fully self-sufficient. Even the most resilient people have allies. You also have to make peace with the fact that not everyone will like you. And the stronger and clearer you become, the more that will trigger certain people, particularly those who benefit from others being uncertain or compliant. Your growth will make them uncomfortable. They will try to pull you back down to where it feels safer for them. That is not your problem to manage. The goal is not to be universally liked. The goal is to be fully respected by yourself. The most untouchable people I have encountered share one thing. They do not waste energy wishing toxic people were different. They accept that some people operate from insecurity, envy, or genuine malice, and they adjust their approach accordingly. That acceptance is liberating. It means you stop taking it personally and start focusing entirely on what you can actually control: your boundaries, your responses, your path forward. Inner strength is not about being cold or closed. It is about having such a solid foundation that you can be generous without being exploited, kind without being naive, and open without being reckless. It is knowing that even if someone disrespects you, it does not alter your self-worth. Even if someone lies about you, it does not change the truth. Even if someone tries to undermine you, it does not touch your actual capability. This strength is built through small, consistent choices over time. Every time you hold your line, you reinforce it. Every time you walk away from something that does not serve you, you reinforce it. Every time you choose your peace over your ego, you reinforce it. One day you will look up and realize you are not just surviving toxic people anymore. You are operating in a way where their power over you is simply gone. At that point, dealing with toxic people stops being a constant battle. You see them, you recognize the patterns, you handle it, and you do not lose your footing. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself to them or prove anything. You know exactly who you are, what you stand for, and what you will and will not accept. Standing in that place, there is nothing they can take from you. At the end of it all, toxic people are not the problem you need to solve. They are the reality you need to navigate. You can spend your life trying to change them, win them over, or prove them wrong. Or you can take the smarter route. You can master yourself. When you understand that their behavior is about them, you stop internalizing it. When you control your energy, you stop giving them access to your emotional state. When you set and enforce limits, you decide who gets a seat at your table and under what terms. When you disengage strategically, you refuse to be pulled into battles that cost more than they are worth. And when you build genuine inner strength, you reach the point where they cannot touch your peace, your confidence, or your direction. The smartest way to deal with toxic people is not to beat them at their own game. It is to make sure you are not playing it. You have one life, one mind, one reserve of energy. Do not spend it on people whose only goal is to drain it. Protect it like it is the most valuable thing you have, because it is. You are not here to be at the mercy of anyone else's dysfunction. You are here to operate with clarity, strength, and purpose. And the moment you stop giving toxic people power over you, you step into a level of freedom that most people never reach. That is when you stop surviving your life and start owning it. Burn this into your thinking and carry it with you. They only win if you let them.